Hi, I'm Father Kevin O'Brien, president of Santa Clara University. I am delighted to welcome you to this fantastic conversation, part of our series from the Leavey School of Business, Leading in Turbulent Times. We certainly know turbulent times. We've all been dealing with it for about a year, the pandemic and all of its impacts, and personally here at the university, but also among our corporations and not-for-profits across the valley and across the country. So it's important at a university like Santa Clara, we help the world do its thinking. We help people work through how to navigate troubled times or turbulent times. The importance here is leading in turbulent times, that we want to provide resources that allow you who are engaged in the corporate world or education world or what have you, or those who are seeking to become leaders, our young people, our students who are listening, that you learn what leadership is about. In one sense, leadership is a gift. We all have certain skills and talents to lead. It's a calling, it's a summons to lead in a sense in whatever time we are called. But it's also skills that we can develop. So part of what we do here in this series is invite people to look at exceptional role models of leadership so they might learn to emulate in a way faithful to their own who they are. They look for ways to emulate good leadership, those values, those qualities that are exhibited by great leaders that we have in our world, in this case, in our corporate world. So, if leadership is truly a summons or a call, we don't necessarily get to dictate the terms of that service because we are given a moment and we are called to that moment. And so, as we begin this series, I want to turn it over to the dean of the Leavey School of Business here at Santa Clara, Narendra Agrawal, who's has been with us at Santa Clara for a long time, but this year serving as interim dean to introduce our distinguished guest, Enrique Lopez, the CEO of HP. We are very excited to have Enrique here, and we are so grateful for his time. So, Nareen, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Father O'Brien, for that warm welcome to everyone in attendance today, for introducing this series, and for your very kind introduction. And Father O'Brien, thank you for your leadership during a time that's been so challenging for institutions of higher learning like ours. So thank you. Let me add my welcome to that by Father O'Brien to all those of you who have joined us today, our current students, faculty, staff, alumni, and we also have a lot of friends at the university. So depending on where you are, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to this inaugural event of the Leavey School's Dean's Leadership Speaker Series. As we all know, this past year has been unlike any that we can remember from recent history. This pandemic has really upended our way of life, the world over. But more locally, we've been rocked by a host of crises. Political crisis, racial injustice, fires, hurricanes, and many, many others. Yet, through all these challenges, I've also seen people and communities and organizations really rise up and do amazing things. I believe that while it's important to never forget what we are going through and what has happened, we should also learn from the creativity and the commitment and the experiences of successful leaders and individuals and organizations, and to celebrate these accomplishments and learn from them. And this is really the reason why we launched this series on leadership in turbulent times. So today, it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest, Mr. Enrique Lopez, who serves as the CEO of HP Inc. HP, the company itself, doesn't need an introduction, especially for those of us who live and work here in the Silicon Valley. Its products in the areas of personal systems, printing technologies, really impact every aspect of our life. And in many ways, HP is a foundational company for Silicon Valley. through its amazing products and technologies, and also through a vast range of cutting-edge business practices. Enrique has been in his current role as CEO since late 2019, but he's not a stranger to HP. He's spent his entire professional career at HP, where he started as an intern. He was one of the lead architects of the restructuring that happened in the company during the 14-15 time period, where the company was divided into HP Inc., which he leads, and HP Enterprises. So Enrique, thank you so much for joining us today, and a very warm welcome to you from all of us in our Santa Clara community.
No, really, thank you for having me here. It's a big pleasure to be able to talk to all of you today. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Enrique, we really have three main goals today. We know that organizations that survive in the long run are those that have strong values and those that have a relentless commitment to these values as their North Star. So we want to learn about Enrique the person, Enrique the leader, your values, HP's values, and how these have shaped you as a leader and help HP during its journey. So that's one thing that we hope to learn about. Mm-hmm. Second, the pandemic, of course. So we want to learn a little bit about how it's impacted your company, how HP has risen to meet these challenges, but hopefully also identified new opportunities through this experience. And then third, if time permits, we'd love to also entertain a few questions about trends or technologies or business models that you are excited about as you look ahead. So hopefully we can cover those kind of topics. So our plan is that Enrique and I will talk for a few minutes, kind of like a fireside chat. And then we'll be joined by some of our students who want to talk directly to Enrique. So we'll do that. And I am also hoping that we can also entertain some questions from the larger group of audience. So for all of you in the audience, please, throughout this conversation, enter your comments, questions, remarks in the chat box. My colleagues are monitoring these inputs, and we hope to get to at least some of your questions or comments. So with that, Enrique, shall we get started?
Yes, but let me start with a short disclaimer. Okay. It's something I learned when I moved to the US a few years ago. And since we will be talking about many things today, what I will be sharing are my ideas, my views, the ideas of my company, but I don't want to take any responsibility if anyone decides to apply them into their own lives, their own careers, their own companies. It's really their discretion. I really don't want to be claimed or receive any claims from anybody.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that humility. Before I get into my first question, I was reminded when you and I talked last, I was struck by your virtual background behind you. It was the garage, the original garage. So it's unfortunate we don't get to see that today.
I can make a small trick. Let me.
That's the one. Yeah, that was the one. Is that something that's still used, or is it just a showpiece now?
We still own the garage. We use it mostly for customer meetings, to invite people to learn about the past of the company. But it's also very inspirational for all of us. In fact, when I became CEO, my very first staff meeting, I took my team and we did the first staff meeting inside not the garage, but the house close to the garage, because really it was an important moment for the company and was a way to convey the message that we really wanted to start as a new team, start the new adventure, the new chapter of the company. And it was a great place to have that conversation.
Oh, obviously, very interesting. It's such an icon in the Silicon Valley and a really great reminder of Bill and Dave's spirit of innovation and creativity.
Yeah, I think it is, but at the same time, we really want to be more focused on the future. So the way we really do this is we think it's important for us as a company to have a very strong foundation, mostly the values that we got from the founders, but at the same time, it's really about what are we going to be doing in the future for our customers, for our employees, for our investors. And that's the balance that we need to that we constantly manage.
Absolutely. So learning from the past, but using it to define the future. Very good. And hopefully we can get to some of those specifics in a few minutes. Enrique, you were born in Madrid, Spain, and after you got your undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, you joined HP as an intern and really became an HP lifer, right? You've been there for 30 years. Something that happens often in academia. It's not that rare in Silicon Valley companies. So I'm not going to ask you the usual question of why you joined HP. I'm going to flip the question around. Why do you think HP hired you as an intern 30 years ago?
I think because, first of all, I had good grades at university, and the way this worked was I was studying my last year of engineering, and a group of HP engineers came to my school to offer a program to get European students to work in the US during the summer, like as interns. And when they shared kind of their views, what they were able to do, the passion they had for everything we're doing, I thought, wow, this is a company that probably will be cool to work for. I applied to the program, and if I got here, it was really because I had very good grades, and this is what opened the door. But it was honestly a great door to be open because 30 years later, I feel more passionate about the company that I did when I joined. And these people that came to my school were talking about printers like if they were the best thing in life. And today I talk about printers like they are the best thing in life. So I really feel the same passion they did, or even more.
That's great. That's wonderful. So you started as an intern. 30 years later, today you're the CEO. Did you know then that you were going to be at HP for such a long time? And did you have a plan? Has your progression been a straight line from then to now, or have you zigged and zagged? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey during these 30 years?
So, I didn't know I was going to be in the company for so long. In fact, when I joined, I thought this will be a great place to be for 2 years. I was living in Valencia, and the company opened an R&D center in Barcelona. And in Spain, usually you don't move around. So you stay in the same city, your parents live, or you go to school and you build your own life. But we said, okay, let's go there for a couple of years. It will be cool. And then we come back. But it never happened. So we went to Barcelona, and really HP opened the door for a lot of very interesting opportunities. What I have been is very lucky because I joined the company when the company was experiencing significant growth, and I have had the opportunity of working almost in any function of the company, R&D, marketing, sales, manufacturing, support, and almost in any business of the company. So I had really the opportunity of continuously learn new experiences, new jobs, get in contact with new cultures, and at the same time grow and have every time more responsibility. And the two things have made that a great experience for me. Not only because I am now the CEO, that if you think about entering as an intern and ending up your career as a CEO is like a dream that becomes true. But putting that aside is also because of all the experiences, learnings, and people I have met during these many, many years.
That's great. Yeah, it's the takeaway that I have here is to be open to new experiences and new opportunities. And some of those you have no idea where it's going to lead, but I think that openness, it seems like, has played a big part in your success.
I think openness and really look for the opportunities of constantly learning new experiences or new jobs or getting in contact with new cultures. Mm-hmm. I think the need to learn it is really fundamental for everybody that wants to succeed in business and probably also to succeed in life.
Absolutely. So let's fast forward 30 years. And now you're the CEO of this company with a $33 billion market cap, over 50,000 employees. I don't think that someone as accomplished as you would have lasted in a company for as long if you didn't see a strong alignment between your own values and the values of the organization that you're a part of. We've all heard about the concept of the HP way, HP values, but we also know that HP has changed a lot over the years. So the question I have is, through all these changes, how has the idea of HP way changed, evolved, and how have your own values developed as a person and shaped you as a leader during this time? And as you respond, I'm going to bring my shade down because I see sun coming directly into my eyes.
Sure.
Sorry about that, but please.
No problem. So I think you said it well. I think is to stay for so long in a company, you really need to align your own, or you need to see that your own values are aligned to the values of the company. And in my case, it has been like that from the beginning. I think the values HP have not changed during all this period of time. Yes, there has been different CEOs, there have been different areas of focus, but the core values that the company has not changed. In fact, I think that when a company has very strong founders, as the case of HP, it's very hard for anybody after that change radically the values. They can be evolved, the culture can be slightly modified, but the core culture never changes. In the case of HP, the core values are very simple to explain. It's all about innovation. It's about respect to the individual. It's about teamwork. It's about making a contribution. And making a contribution means looking at both creating profit for shareholders, but it's also about having a positive impact in the communities we serve, in the countries where we have operations, in the cities where our employees live. And that combination of focusing on, let's say, business growth, and having an impact has been and will be a key part of what HP is and what we want the company to stand for.
That's great. And I think many in our audience might not know that a part of your journey, your academic journey, also took you through ESADE, which is a sister Jesuit institution where you got your MBA. And if I'm not wrong, you currently serve and chair their advisory board as well.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to ask, how has your exposure to a Jesuit institution influenced your thinking about these values and your style of leadership?
I think institutions like Santa Clara or ESADE have this advantage versus many other business schools. The fact that there are very strong values that guide the education and that students need to learn are shown during the school, I think it's important as we create the leaders that companies will need in the future. I think leaders with strong values that know what are their limits and what do they really want to stand for are absolutely necessary today, especially because more and more companies and private institutions are having a more relevant role defining and driving what we want our countries to be. And to be able to do that, you need to have very strong values that really can be shared and can be taught at schools like Santa Clara.
Thank you. I think that message resonates very well with us, given our focus on values. So thank you for sharing that. Enrique, let me switch gears just a little bit and talk about this past year. When we think about major catastrophic events, whether it's wars or natural disasters, most of us can remember exactly where we were and when that event happened. But I think this pandemic was a little different in that there was not one defining moment. So can you share with us what was it when was it that you and your team at HP realized that this was real and that you had to do something about it? And what were the indicators you were looking at that led you to believe that something ominous was on the horizon?
Yes, we probably had an advantage versus other institutions because we have a global presence and we have a large group of people working in China. So when we realized, and we have a very a large number of people working in factories in China and a very strong connection with local governments. So sometime in the mid-January timeframe, we got a call from the office of the mayor of Chongqing, which is one of the largest cities in China. And they requested our help to buy masks. And they are a very large city that have very strong connections in the industry. So when they called and they requested our help to buy masks, we realized that something really big was happening and something really wrong was happening. Now, at that point in time, we still thought, and we were very naive, that it was something that was going to be staying in China as we had seen in previous cases. And only when we started to see what was happening in Italy, we realized that we really needed to take some immediate actions to protect our employees. And in fact, we were one of the first companies that decided to send everybody in every country in the world to work from home, because we saw that things really were getting out of control. And we thought that since the priority for us was the health and safety of our employees, it was important to send them home and to see what happened. We did that late February or early March, and then everything else happened since then. But this was kind of how all this started for us.
I see. It's interesting, and it's very consistent with what you said about HP values, that your first thought was towards the safety of your employees, and then you had to do what you had to do to keep them safe. So thank you.
Well, the first discussion we had was, how are we going to be managing this situation? And what we realized is there is not a manual or a book to say, when there is a pandemic, this is what you need to do. And really going back to what our core values were, our core principles were, is what we did. And this really guided our actions, as especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when we really didn't know what was going to happen, how long it was going to be, what was going to be the impact. We really had to go back to our core principles and values to be able to navigate a very, very difficult situation.
That's great. So let's kind of dig a little deeper into that. You talked about HP being a global company with a global supply chain and customers the world over. Obviously, safety of your employees was critical. What were some of the other important challenges that you had to deal with over this year? And I guess these would take a special meaning for a globally dispersed company like yours.
Well, we have faced many different challenges through the year. First, when the pandemic started, the major impact was in the factories, because China closed down and we have a very large part of our production being done in China. Then Southeast Asia closed, and this had a major impact in the rest of the business that had not been impacted until that point. And then many countries locked down, which means our products were arriving to airports or were arriving to ports, but nobody could move them around. This was at the beginning. Then we started to see impact on the demand side. People were not going to the office, so people were not printing in the office. Our printing business in the office really declined very fast. On the other side, many companies decided to equip their employees to be able to work from home. Parents bought PCs or printers for their kids to do homework or to study from home. And this drove demand to PCs up. And we didn't have product because the factories were down. So we really needed to do anything we could to manage both. And at the same time, we were surrounded by all the issues we were seeing around us. We were getting requests from hospitals that they didn't have masks or didn't have respirators. And what we did was we mobilized our 3D printing factories inside and also with the partners to be able to design and produce those products to help hospitals. So it was kind of a very strange period of time where nothing was operating as normal, and we needed to rebalance both supply and production, and at the same time mobilize our resources to see how could we help in the different communities where we were operating.
Yeah, that's interesting that the squeeze was felt both on the supply side as well as on the demand side. And obviously, you've done a lot of things over this year. So, what are, if you look back and review what's been accomplished since March, of the things that HP has been able to accomplish, what are the things that you are most proud of that you were able to do? And what kind of lessons and insights have you been able to gain personally, having gone through this experience with your amazing team at HP?
Yeah, I think the first is that we have been managing the company working from home. We all came home at the end of February, and if you had asked me in February, are you going to be able to manage the company with all the team working from home? I would have said no. And the company has done it. And it's not only managing the company. We have continued to develop new products. We have introduced a new family of PCs. We have introduced a new family of printers. And in many cases, engineers finish their work working from their homes, working from their garages, working from their kitchens. That's really something that is hard to explain how difficult it is, but the team was able to make it happen. We also decided that it was very important to stay connected. With everybody working from home, we were concerned that people was going to be feeling lost and feeling disconnected from where the company was. So we made a huge effort with Zoom and other video conferencing tools to regularly talk to all employees and to all managers. In the first 3 months, we had a video conference with every employee of the company, to the point that they were seen as more and they were seen as closer than in a normal situation where we were relying on physical meetings. Because we really have learned that with using tools like this, you really can connect with people and you can engage with people as you talk to them. In fact, we every year measure employee engagement, and employee engagement this year is the highest in the history of the company. That shows how, by totally redefining our processes to connect with employees, and in a very difficult time, we have been able to connect, to continue to motivate, and to continue to engage them with the company. And probably finally, we have been able not only to manage the company well, but really to take advantage of the changes we have been seeing around. Because the pandemic has accelerated change, has accelerated digital transformation, has created new business models, has created segments that were not growing for us that are growing, and has impacted segments that are growing. And we have been able to rebalance that to continue to serve our customers and to continue to serve our employees.
That's great. And I once again, I hear the theme of focus on the well-being of employees and care of that coming through very loud and clear in your response. It's great to hear those amazing things. The other thing that has happened, at least locally within the United States during this past year, is that the events have really opened up our eyes to the painful history and ongoing prevalence of racism and inequity in our society. As you may have heard at Santa Clara University, our president and trustees and the leadership at the university has really committed us to becoming an anti-racist institution.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that these principles are very important to you and to HP as well. So can you please tell us a little bit about what you've done to address these kinds of issues, and what are your goals for the future in this area?
Yeah, and let me share kind of my own personal journey, because when George Floyd was killed was a very difficult time for many of us, because we realized that things were not as rosy as we thought. And we took it as an opportunity to really understand and to get to know better the situation that many of our colleagues were facing. And what we learned, we actually didn't like. Because, for example, we organized town halls where we invited African American and Black employees to share their own personal experiences, to share what has been their childhood, or what experiences have they gone through when they were teenagers, on what happened with them when they were looking for jobs. And we realized that the experiences they had were very different from the experiences the rest of us were going through. And this made us both feel bad and terrible because of that. But at the same time, when we saw the reaction, and when I saw the reaction of everybody really trying to help, both inside the company, but also many companies that really volunteer and work together to drive the necessary change, at least it has created the hope that we will be able, working together, to change the situation that we are facing. But clearly, what we have learned is that we have a lot of work to do. We were very proud of the progress we had made on diversity, on inclusion. We realized that if we needed to do this, we have only done this. And really, we have now to do much more work in the years to come to increase the number of African American executives, to make sure we increase diversity at all levels of the company, and that we really do what we were supposed to do, that we were not seeing because we were really blind and we were not seeing the real situation that many of our employees were experiencing.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, I think you're right that this is an area where many institutions have a lot of learning to do, Santa Clara included. But I really think that there are a lot of lessons that we can all learn from each other about how we are going about this journey. So I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me, we've talked so far about kind of your journey, a little bit about your values this past year. Perhaps we can turn around and look ahead a little bit to the future. If you look at the coming months and years, what kind of trends and technologies or business models or consumer preferences are you most excited about or most concerned about?
I think, as I was saying before, the pandemic is really accelerating transformation in many, many parts of our societies. I think how we work is going to fundamentally change. I think we all have learned that it's possible to work from home. And I think the model that we are going in the future is going to be a hybrid model where people will do some work at home and will go to the office mostly to collaborate, to do work with their teams more than to do individual work. We are seeing changes in the medicine, in the telehealth space, in education. And all these changes are going to have really, or are going to open opportunities for companies like us to develop technologies to really serve these customers in very different ways, enabling them to do things that today they cannot do. We also have learned that because of the pandemic, the way we have built our supply chain networks needs to change. We have too much reliance on a few countries, and we need to increase the resiliency of our supply chain organizations. We need to be able to produce products closer to what the final consumers are going to be. And this is, for us, a need to change, but also an opportunity to drive and to use 3D printing as a disruptive technology that other companies will be adopting. We have also seen big changes in how consumers want to buy. The growth of online businesses has skyrocketed during the last few months. And it's not only what they buy, it's also changing how they buy. Customers more and more want to buy subscriptions. They don't want to buy products transactionally. They care about the service they get with the products they get. This is opening also an opportunity for us to create new businesses. So we are seeing a lot of change, but change is good in the sense that opens opportunity if you really focus on it. And this is what really we are excited about from a company perspective because of the many opportunities we see opening for us.
That's fascinating. That's a lot of change in your supply chain architecture, the business model, and the products themselves that you're focused on. You talked about 3D printing. Are there particular applications of 3D printing that you or the company are particularly excited about that make us think differently about the world?
I think 3D printing is going to change how we live in two different perspectives. First, it's going to have a big impact in how manufacturing works because you can produce products locally faster and reduce the time, the cycle between design and manufacturing. And that's exciting. But what is even more exciting is that it enables what we call industries of one. Something that we all have learned during the last years is that all of us want to be different. We want to have our own shoes, our own t-shirt, our own glasses. And with 3D printing, we can design and build products for one individual. We can build shoes that have been designed for the foot of a given person. And that opportunity of building things for one person is really exciting, and is going to be opening a lot of new businesses for us in the future. Think about the medical sector, for example. Think about insoles. Think about parts to replace hips. All these parts need to be designed for one person, built for one person, and with 3D printing, we can totally transform that business.
That's fascinating. It almost has a huge implication on the business that HP is in. It's I guess not just a printing company, but it's really in the business of delivering health and delivering education and delivering lifestyle.
And this is one of the fundamental changes that we see. We realize that we cannot just stay at building the printers or the equipment that others will be using. The real transformation happens when we deliver the final experience, when we enable the consumer to use or consume the products in a different way. And owning that full value chain is really what we aspire to do for a specific segment, of course.
That's fascinating. It's fascinating.
And think about the time where it is not only a part that we are replacing, there is a full electronic circuit built into the plan, into the part. So the part communicates, the part is connected. And think about how the opportunities that we will be opening in the future. When you go through surgery to replace your hip, the hip has electronics inside, and after surgery, the hip will be telling you how to walk. What are you doing wrong or right to recover faster? And apply this to any part of the world, and you can think of the opportunities we see openings for us in the future.
That's mind-boggling. It's fantastic. Enrique, we're at the point where I know the part that you are most excited about, which is talking directly to our students. So in a moment, we're going to invite some of our students who are very much looking forward to talking directly with you. And these are students who are currently in our programs, and I suspect that they should be coming on in just a second. There we go. Wonderful. I am going to point first to Hannah. Enrique, Hannah is an undergraduate student in our program. She's a senior and an economics major with an environmental studies minor. Hannah, welcome.
Hi. So my question is, what has HP done in the area of sustainability? And as a sustainability leader in the tech industry, how can or how has HP encouraged or inspired other tech companies to set their own vigorous sustainability initiatives to reach worldwide climate goals?
So let me start by saying that sustainability is one of our top 4 priorities for the next years. And we have decided to work and to really focus on those areas where we can have an impact. And we have identified 3. One, of course, is we will become a carbon neutral company. But this is what many other companies are doing, so it's not very differentiated. But when you think about HP, there are 2 things where really we can influence, have a much stronger influence. First is with printing. Everybody thinks that printing is not an environmentally friendly technology because you use paper, and if you are using paper, means you are cutting trees to create that paper. So what we have decided and what we have in place is a program where we plant trees based on the paper that is used in our printers, to the point that we have the aspiration by the end of next year to become what we call forest positive printing. So forest will be growing because people will be printing on HP printers. Second big area is plastics. We produce millions of PCs, cartridges, and printers. And we have made the commitment to utilize either recycled plastic or ocean-bound plastic that would have ended in the oceans. And this again is an area where, because of the business model that we have and the products that we generate, we can really have a significant impact. What is behind this is the belief that as a company, it is not only about driving profit, it's really about having a positive contribution. And the best way to do both is by integrating the sustainability goals in our business goals. And this is why these examples of paper or plastic are so important, because they're really embedded in how we will be doing business in the future.
Great, thank you. Our next student that we want to talk to you is another one of our undergraduate students, Darius Johnson. Darius is a sophomore, so he's early on in his academic career. He's a finance major. Darius?
Lovely, thank you. And I just want to start off by saying, Mr. Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's always great when we can have a leader from the Valley come and speak to the Santa Clara community. So my question really stems around the professional space. So as a student who's really looking to get involved in the professional world, such as internships and then future career opportunities, you yourself mentioned coming to HP as an intern and all the way 30 years later now as a CEO. What advice would you have for me to be prepared during these unprecedented times of COVID and this online environment we're going through right now?
I think,
Enrique, for those who might not have been able to hear that clearly, I believe Darius's question was about what advice would you have for a young undergraduate student who is getting ready to enter the workforce during these unprecedented times? Thank you.
I think is the most important thing is, do you need to maximize, you need to learn as much as you can, both at school, but also in any activity that you do after that. We as companies, what we are looking for is people that have a very strong foundation in terms of knowledge, but that also has shown that they are interested in things beyond work, that have participated in other activities, that has interest to see how things are changing in the world. And that combination is what many companies like us are going to be looking for.
Just to follow up on that, has the set of attributes that you look for in your employees changed at all or influenced at all by what you've observed during this past year, Enrique?
I think has probably been reinforced. I think what we see is the amount of change that is happening requires that people that will succeed are people that are willing to embrace that change and take advantage of the change happening around that. And I think also it is very important that we hire people that has very strong values, that behaves fundamental. Willingness to change, curiosity to change, ability to drive change with a very strong foundation of values is what really makes people succeed in the company.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Darius. And for our third question, I am very pleased to invite Suchita Kaunden. Suchita is in our MBA program, our evening MBA program, and she is almost towards the end of her journey as a graduate student. So Suchita, welcome.
Thank you so much for taking my question. So my question is that it seems to me that staying true to the HP culture helped you weather this storm with great success. Can you share some examples of the resilience you have seen in the HP's business plan?
Sure. I think from a business perspective, we really have been able to take advantage of the diversity of our portfolio. In our portfolio, we have PCs, both for home usage and office usage. We have printers for home and office, and then we have industrial equipment. The industrial equipment and the office printers were really impacted very negatively by the pandemic. Companies shut down all capital investments, and if people are not in the office, they are not printing in the office, and therefore companies are not buying printers for the office. At the same time, we saw a very strong demand for PCs, especially notebooks, because companies wanted to equip employees to work from home, or parents needed to buy PCs for their kids to learn from home, and this really drove demand of that part of the company. And we also saw a big resurgence of home printing. Again, people were working from home, or kids were doing homework from home, and this drove significant increase of our demand. So that balance was the first kind of sign of resiliency. Second, we also saw opportunities to accelerate some of the changes that we were driving. For example, in printing, we are shifting the business model to as a service, to a subscription model. And we saw that because of the pandemic, more and more customers were interested in this type of business model. We started the year with 5 million subscribers, and it had taken us several years to get to 5 million subscribers. We ended the year with more than 8 million subscribers. So in a year, in a few months, in 3 quarters, we almost doubled the number of customers that we had in the subscription program. And finally, as I was explaining before, we have also seen big validation of the value that 3D printing is going to bring, especially as companies will be looking to how to make their supply chains more resilient. This is going to be a key technology for them to allow that. So a lot of things probably based on the diversity of portfolio and diversity of customers that we have.
Thank you, Darius, Hannah, Suchita. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm looking at my chat here, and we have some questions coming in from the larger audience as well. So I'm going to ask one of these to you. So here's one question. I'm not sure who it's from, but here's the question. Enrique, we've had a lot of questions about your personal leadership style. So I guess there were several questions about that. Folks are curious about things like, how do you prioritize your day all the way to your email routines? Can you let us in on your leadership success?
So first is, with me, you get what you see. So I'm very transparent, very direct. I don't play politics. If I like something, I say it. And if I don't like something, I also say it. I explain why in both cases, but I try to make sure people really understands very well where I am. I think that I'm a big believer in innovation. I think with innovation, we can really change the world. And I have seen this happening many times, and I'm really driving this very hard in the company because I think it's the best way for us to succeed in the future. I think it's very important to have the right combination of strategy and execution. I am a firm believer that we need to have clear plans of where we want to go, but I also know that if we don't execute, we go nowhere. And that combination is really critical, and the organization needs to know how to do both. I really believe in teamwork and diversity. I think doing things together, you get better things done, and also you have more fun. And by having a very diverse network of employees, of peers, of executives, you get better ideas, you get better products, because you understand better what consumers and customers are going to be expecting from you. And finally, as I have been saying many times, I strongly believe that the role of companies is not only to create profit, to create value for shareholders, is really also about doing the right things for our employees, for our communities, for our partners. And that balance, I think, is incredibly important. Going more towards the personal side, I wake up very early in the morning, and I use this first hour before I have any meeting to plan the day, think what is going to be important, think about what are going to be my priorities for that day or for the following days. Then I have a fairly busy agenda where I almost go from meeting to meeting to meeting from 6 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. But then in the evening, I have some more time to think and to kind of restructure what I will be doing. And I would say this is my style.
That's great. It's interesting that even your daily routine is very focused both on the time to think and strategize, but also execute on whatever ideas you have.
Mm-hmm.
We have a second question. This is from a student who is currently a senior. How do you manage professional ambition with life and with building a rich cultural perspective? So in other words, do you ever see a trade-off between doing well professionally versus personally, and how do you kind of marry the two?
I think that's a very, very important question. I think the most important thing is that each of us need to know what makes us happy. And if having an aggressive career makes us happy, or spending time with friends makes us happy, or traveling around makes us happy, or reading a book, surfing, skiing, we need to ask this question to ourselves and design our life around that. Because if not, you will always be facing the trade-offs that not having that choice, not having made that choice will bring. And this is what will create insatisfaction and will create anxiety. If you know what makes you happy and you design your life around that, then things are much easier. For example, in my case, I decided many years ago that I had two priorities: work and family. And I have designed my life around these two things. And I have let go many other things that I would have liked doing, but I realized were not the two things that were going to make me happy and really were going to enjoy my life. And by doing that, I can say I have made progress with my family, I have made progress with my work, and I have been a happy person.
That's great. That's wonderful advice, Enrique. Thank you. You've given us a lot of advice about companies, about the future that you see within for HP. The picture of the future that you painted, at least to me, implied that it would be important for companies to be good at gathering data, analyzing it, computing, but also that future involves building high quality hardware products, such as your printers, 3D printers and others.
Mhm.
So we need both of these set of skills while being aware of wellness of your employees and the community. Given all of that, what kind of advice would you have for people like us in academia who are charged with training our youth for this future and training good citizens? What advice would you share with us in academia?
I think it's important that people learn how to solve problems. It is not so much about having a lot of knowledge, it's about how to use that knowledge to address specific problems, whether are finance problems, engineering problems. Really, this is what for companies is fundamental. And I think teaching people to think, to approach, to address, to simplify is really what is critical. Teaching people how to communicate and to work with other people, how to operate and really get things done in teams. That's another thing that is very important. How to more and more how to communicate globally, how to get these things done working remotely. We, for example, have development centers all over the world, from Israel, Barcelona, Brazil, the US, India, Malaysia, and in many cases, those people are working together on the same problem. How to enable that, how to teach them to work on that space, I think is something that you can really help. And finally, as we have said before, how to teach people what the right values are, what the key principles are that will make them great employees, but also great people in their communities. I think is something that really you have a big opportunity and obligation to really teach in your students.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm looking at our time, so we are getting close to the end of our time with you. But before we let you go, I do have two other questions for you. So here's the first one. You obviously had a wonderful and very successful and eventful professional career. But if I could ask you to jump into a time capsule and do some time travel back when Enrique was a senior in college in Spain, knowing what you do today over these 30 years, what would you do differently? What advice would you give young Enrique?
I think there are several things that we have talked today already. First of all is, I think really going through this exercise of thinking what makes you happy, what are those things that makes you really feel well and that you use to define the priority of your life is very important. I think second is you need to think and choose an area, especially if you want to have a good career where there is growth. Because to succeed in the career, you need to be lucky. And being lucky means being a place where there are many opportunities. And by choosing an area where there is growth, I think the chances of that are higher. I think you need to always focus on learning from the job, learning from your peers, from your friends, from your bosses, from your employees. The more you learn, the more valuable you are. And that's something that all of us need to continue to do. I think is also important that you understand what your values are, what your principles are, what your style is, and you stay true to that. At the end, you need to be when you are at night and you wake up at night, you need to make sure you are comfortable with yourself, with the decisions you have made, with how and why you have made certain things. And only by staying true to your values, to your principles, this is possible. And then finally, and this is something that when I got the question about the day, I forgot to mention, I think it's important to constantly challenge ourselves to ask what value have we added? Have I done something valuable today? Have I made a contribution to my company? If this is something that we need to constantly ask ourselves and challenge ourselves. When you were saying you are a successful person, this is not how I think about myself. Today, I think about myself as I'm running a company. I have a long list of challenges and opportunities, and I need to make sure I make progress. I don't look at the past. I don't look at what has happened. I really look at what is coming next and how can I make a contribution given the opportunities that we have and the assets that I can drive now.
Thank you. It's a very very insightful way of evaluating what's being done and what needs to be done. Enrique, I want to end on a lighter note by asking you a series of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
The goal is to get a peek into you, the person. So we started doing a little bit of that already with the question that we got from the audience. So here are a few more. So just, respond with the first thing that pops into your head.
Okay.
All right. So what was the last movie or streaming show that you have seen?
I saw during the weekend the Queen of Gambit, a series about chess.
Wonderful, wonderful. See, we are getting to learn about your interests. What was the last book that you read?
I am reading 2 books. I am reading *Sapiens*. That is a book that I wanted to read for a long time. And I also just started during the weekend the new book that Clark Shaw, the founder of the World Economic Forum, has just written about stakeholder capitalism.
Terrific, terrific, which I know is something that's very important to HP.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. What is the restaurant that you're itching to go to as soon as the lockdown is lifted?
I will choose one here in the Bay, Evia in Palo Alto.
Okay. Wise to not give the name. What is your favorite vacation destination?
I like to go to Spain. We have a house in the beach, and we really love going there, both to be there, but also to rebuild connections with family, with friends, and with the environment there.
That's lovely. How many 100 emails do you have in your inbox?
Many. I follow very strange storage techniques. I don't delete any email. So I have all the emails in my inbox. So for me, it's easier to search. It's a very personal way of managing email, but means I have a very big inbox.
Well, it's you said, know yourself. So this works for you. What's the first website that you check every morning after you go through your emails?
cnbc.com.
Okay, very good. All right, Enrique, this is the most important question. Batman versus Superman versus Spider-Man. Who would you root for?
Superman.
Superman, okay.
Because it flies. Flying is something I would love to be able to do.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Well, on that note, Enrique, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing your insights about leadership, about values, important lessons we can draw from your experiences and, of course, from the experiences of your company. I certainly look forward to your continued success as a leader at HP and whatever else you choose to do. And of course, our best is for HP's continued contributions to the society and to the Silicon Valley. And I know that members of our audience and our large Bronco family are also very grateful to you for spending your time with us today.
No, thank you for inviting me here. I hope this was useful. And HP and Santa Clara are both key members of the Silicon Valley community. So hopefully we can continue to strengthen the relationship between both in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, HP has been a very important partner for Santa Clara. And I hope that we can continue to explore other ways to collaborate as well. Thank you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us today for this inaugural event of the Leavey School's Dean's Leadership Lecture Series. Please look out for information about our next event, which will feature another very exciting and insightful leader, Mr. Neeraj Shah, who's the CEO of Wayfair. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today with Mr. Lopez. Good evening. Please stay healthy and so long. Thank you.